The rain fell softly on the broken roof, dripping into small metal bowls placed carefully across the room. Each drop echoed like a ticking clock, counting the moments of a life filled with struggle. In that tiny house at the edge of the town lived a woman whose heart was larger than the world had ever been to her. Her name was Mariam. Mariam was not rich. She was not educated. She was not powerful. But she was a mother, and that made her stronger than pain, stronger than hunger, stronger than fate. Every morning before the sun rose, Mariam would kneel beside her wooden bed, her hands folded tightly, whispering a prayer she had learned long ago. Jesus, I have nothing to give my child except my love. Please, give him your grace. Her son Daniel slept on the thin mattress beside her, his small chest rising and falling gently. He was only 7 years old, yet his eyes had already seen too much poverty, too much silence, too many unanswered questions. Daniel never knew his father. When people asked Mariam about her husband, her eyes would lower and her lips would tremble. He went to God before my son could call him father, she would say, quietly. The truth was harsher. Daniel's father had died in a factory accident, crushed under heavy steel while working overtime to buy medicine for Mariam during her pregnancy. From that day onward, Mariam's life became a long road of sacrifice. Walked barefoot. Maryam cleaned houses during the day. At night, she stitched clothes by candlelight. Her fingers were always sore, cracked and bleeding, but she never complained, because every stitch meant bread. Every cleaned floor meant milk for Daniel. Sometimes, when Daniel slept, Mariam would sit beside him and cry silently, wiping her tears before they could fall on his face. My child should never feel my pain, she whispered on Sundays. No matter how tired she was, Mariam took Daniel to the small church at the corner of the street. Its walls were old, its benches broken, but for Mariam, it was heaven. Daniel loved the way the sunlight passed through the cracked glass windows, painting colors on the floor. He loved the soft voice of the pastor. But most of all, he loved watching his mother pray. She prayed like she was talking to someone she trusted deeply. Mother, Daniel once asked, tugging at her dress, why do you cry when you pray? Mariam smiled, brushing his hair gently. Because Jesus listens, my son. One winter evening, the cold was cruel. Mariam had earned very little that day. The houses she cleaned had locked their doors early. Her feet were numb. Her stomach burned with hunger. At home, she placed a small piece of bread on the table and poured water into 2 cups. Daniel looked at the bread. Mother, aren't you hungry? Mariam shook her head and smiled. I already ate, my angel. That was a lie. She watched Daniel eat slowly, tearing small pieces as if he was afraid the bread might disappear. When he finished, he pushed the plate toward her. Please eat, mother. Mariam turned away so he wouldn't see the tears. I will eat later, she said softly. That night, after Daniel slept, Mariam knelt on the cold floor. Jesus, she whispered through trembling lips, I am not asking for riches. I am not asking for comfort. Just don't let my child sleep hungry. Days passed. Harder days came. Daniel fell sick. His small body burned with fever. Mariam held him in her arms all night, pressing his head to her chest, rocking back and forth. Jesus, please, she cried, take my life if you must, but spare my son. She sold her only shawl to buy medicine. She skipped meals. She begged doors. She begged doors she once cleaned with dignity, and still, she prayed. One night, Daniel woke up and saw his mother kneeling. He climbed out of bed and stood beside her. Jesus, Daniel said softly, copying her posture, please make my mother happy. She cries a lot when she thinks I'm sleeping. Mariam gasped, pulling him into her arms. In that moment she realized something powerful. A mother's love protects the body, but faith protects the soul. The next morning, a knock came at the door. Mariam opened it slowly. A woman stood there, well-dressed, kind-eyed. I'm looking for a cleaner, she said. Someone told me about you. That day, Mariam earned more than she had in weeks. That week, Daniel's fever broke. That month, food stayed on the table. Mariam knew deep in her heart this was not coincidence. This was grace. Time does not heal wounds. It teaches us how to live with them. Daniel grew older, but the shadows of poverty followed him like silent companions. His clothes were always a size too small, his shoes worn thin at the soles. Yet his eyes carried something rare, hope. Planted carefully by his mother's faith, Mariam continued to work endlessly. Before sunrise, she left the house. After midnight she returned. Her back bent a little more each year, her hands rough like stone. But whenever Daniel looked at her, she smiled as if life had been kind. Study hard, she told him every night. Education is the door Jesus opens when the world closes all others. At school, Daniel learned early that kindness is not always returned. Other children laughed at him. Poor boy, church boy, no father. The words cut deeper than hunger ever had. One afternoon, Daniel came home with torn books and bruised arms. Mariam noticed immediately. Who did this? She asked, her voice trembling. Daniel shook his head. It doesn't matter, mother. She cleaned his wounds gently, her tears falling onto the cloth. Jesus was mocked too, she whispered, and still, He forgave. That night Mariam prayed longer than usual. Money grew tighter. Daniel's school fees increased. Mariam did the impossible. She sold her wedding ring, the last memory of her husband. When the jeweler placed money in her palm, her hands shook. This ring carried love, she thought, but my son carries my future. She walked home holding the money tightly, whispering a prayer with every step. Daniel noticed everything. He noticed his mother skipping meals. He noticed her coughing at night. He noticed the way she hid pain behind prayer. One evening, he said quietly, "Mother, maybe I should stop school." Mariam froze. "No," she said sharply, then softened. "Never say that again." She held his face firmly. "You are my answered prayer. I did not suffer so you could give up." Daniel cried into her arms, his tears soaking her old dress. Mariam collapsed at work one afternoon. Exhaustion, malnutrition, years of sacrifice catching up. Daniel rushed to the clinic, his heart pounding. The doctor looked serious. "She needs rest, proper food, or she will not survive long." Daniel felt the ground disappear beneath him. That night he sat beside his mother, holding her hand. "I'll work," he whispered. "I'll take care of you now." Mariam opened her tired eyes. "No," she said gently. "Jesus carried the cross so you wouldn't have to carry mine." Weeks passed. A church member noticed Daniel's dedication and Mariam's condition. With the pastor's help, Daniel received a scholarship. Mariam cried not tears of pain this time, but gratitude. "Thank you, Jesus," she whispered. "You never arrive early, but you are never late." Though Daniel's life slowly improved, Mariam's health worsened. Her breath became shallow, her steps slow. Still, she prayed. Still, she smiled. Still, she thanked Jesus for every sunrise. One night she held Daniel's hand tightly. "Promise me something," she said softly. "What?" Daniel asked, afraid. "No matter how far life takes you, never forget your faith, and never forget your mother." Daniel nodded, tears falling freely. "I promise." Success does not arrive gently. It enters loudly, carrying pride, pressure, and forgetting. Daniel grew into a young man with sharp eyes and a disciplined mind. The scholarship opened doors that poverty had always kept locked. His teachers praised him. His classmates admired him. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt seen, not as a poor boy, but as someone with potential. Mariam watched him grow from the doorway of their small home each time he left for college. She stood there silently, whispering prayers into the air long after he disappeared down the road. "Jesus, keep him humble, keep him kind, and if he forgets me, please remember him." College was different. Bright buildings, well-dressed students, laughter without worry. Daniel tried to fit in. He stopped talking about his past. He stopped mentioning church. He stopped bringing friends home whenever his phone rang and his mother's name appeared. He felt a strange heaviness. "I'll call her later," he told himself. Later became tomorrow. Tomorrow became weeks. Mariam noticed everything. She noticed the shorter calls, the missed Sundays, the silence. She never complained. Instead, she placed Daniel's childhood photo near her bed and prayed every night. "Jesus, I gave him to you before he was born. If I must lose him to the world, please don't let him lose you." Her health continued to fail, but her faith remained unbroken. Daniel received his first job offer before graduation. Good salary, big city, new life. His friends celebrated. Daniel smiled. But when Mariam heard the news, her smile trembled. "Thus far," she said quietly. "I'll visit." Daniel replied quickly. He didn't notice how her hands shook as she blessed him. Daniel left. The city swallowed him whole. Work consumed his days. Ambition ruled his nights. He missed his mother's calls, ignored church invitations, forgot the prayers she taught him. Mariam waited. Every evening, she set aside food for him as if he might walk in any moment. Neighbors asked, "Does your son visit?" Mariam smiled softly. "He's busy." One cold night, Mariam collapsed while walking home from church. No son to hold her, no familiar voice to call her name. A neighbor rushed her to the hospital. The doctor sighed. "Her body is weak, and her heart is tired." Daniel's phone rang during a meeting. Unknown number. He ignored it. Minutes later, message arrived. "Your mother is in the hospital." The room spun. Daniel ran. Mariam lay pale and fragile, her breathing shallow. Daniel fell to his knees beside her. "I'm here, mother," he cried. "I'm sorry." Mariam opened her eyes slowly. She smiled. "Jesus brought you back to me," she whispered. Tears streamed down Daniel's face. "I forgot everything," he said. Mariam lifted her trembling hand. "You forgot the world," she said gently, "but Jesus never forgot you." Mariam prayed with her last strength. "Jesus, forgive my son, bless his path, and when I am gone, but be his mother." Daniel sobbed, holding her hand tightly. Hospitals have a strange silence, not the silence of peace but the silence of waiting, waiting for miracles, waiting for endings. Daniel sat beside his mother's bed, afraid to blink, afraid that even a second of distraction might steal her away. The machines beeped softly, like a fragile heartbeat counting down time. Mariam looked smaller than he remembered. Her once strong hands were thin, her breathing shallow, but her eyes, those eyes still held light. Daniel held her hand tightly. I should have come sooner, he whispered, his voice breaking. I chose work, success, pride. Mariam smiled weakly. My son, she said softly, even Jesus was left alone by those he loved. Pain does not mean abandonment. Tears fell freely now. I forgot church. I forgot prayer, Daniel confessed. Mariam's fingers tightened slightly around his. But did Jesus forget you? She asked. Daniel shook his head. No, he cried. She smiled. Then my prayers were answered. The night grew long. Daniel spoke about his childhood, the bread, the cold, the prayers. I know now, he said, choking on his words. You starved so I could eat. Mariam closed her eyes briefly. A mother's hunger feeds her child's future. She whispered. The doctor entered quietly. Daniel stood up, searching his face for hope. We're doing everything we can, the doctor said gently. But you should prepare yourself. Daniel nodded numbly. Mariam looked peaceful. She turned to Daniel. Promise me one thing more, she said. Anything, Daniel said quickly. Live a life that honors God. Help those who have no one. And when you pray, remember your mother, smiling, not crying. Daniel kissed her hand. I promise, he said through tears. Late at night, Mariam asked Daniel to help her sit up. She folded her hands with great effort. Jesus, she whispered, her voice barely sound. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my son. If my suffering brought him closer to you, then it was worth everything. Daniel wept uncontrollably. Mariam turned her head toward him one last time. Do not fear death, she said softly. It is only a door, and Jesus is waiting on the other side. Her grip loosened. The machine slowed. A final breath escaped her lips until peaceful, complete. Mariam was gone, not with pain, not with fear, but with faith. Daniel cried out, holding her still hand. Mother, please, don't leave me. But she had already gone where prayers are answered forever. Morning light filled the room. Daniel stood by the window, hollow and broken for the first time. The world felt truly empty. He whispered through tears, Jesus, she gave me to you, now I give myself back. Daniel returned to the small house where he had grown up. The door creaked as he opened it, the sound echoing like a cry in the empty space. Her shoes were still near the entrance. Her shawl still hung on the wall. Her prayer book still lay beside the bed. Daniel collapsed onto the floor, holding the worn cloth to his face. This house doesn't know she's gone, he whispered. Days passed. Daniel stopped answering calls. He stopped going to work. He stopped eating. At night, he sat alone, staring at the ceiling, replaying every ignored call, every delayed visit. If love had a sound, he thought, it would be my mother calling my name. One evening, Daniel opened her old prayer book. A folded paper slipped out. It was a letter written in shaky handwriting. My son, if you are reading this, I am with Jesus. Do not cry for me. I lived my life for you, and I would do it again without hesitation. The greatest gift you can give me now is to live with faith and kindness. Remember, when you fall, kneel and Jesus will lift you. Daniel pressed the letter to his chest and cried like a child. The following Sunday, Daniel walked into the old church. The same cracked windows, the same wooden benches, but this time he walked alone. He knelt where his mother used to kneel. Jesus, he whispered, I don't know how to live without her, but she trusted you, so I will too. For the first time in years, Daniel felt peace, not happiness, but peace. Daniel returned to work, but not the same man. He volunteered at shelters. He donated quietly. He helped struggling mothers whenever he could. Each act felt like a conversation with her. Look, mother, he thought, I'm becoming who you prayed for. One day, Daniel met a small boy at a shelter, barefoot, hungry, afraid. The boy looked up at him and asked, Sir, do you believe Jesus listens? Daniel knelt beside him. Yes, he said softly. He listens especially to mothers and children. Years passed. Daniel never married, never forgot, never stopped praying. He placed his mother's photo beside his bed, not as a reminder of loss, but of purpose. Every night, he whispered the same words she once did. Jesus, I have nothing to give this world except love. Please, let it be enough. Love does not end with death. It only changes its place. The small house was gone. In its place stood a modest community center built with one purpose, to serve mothers and children who had nothing. Above the entrance, a simple line was carved into stone, in loving memory of a mother whose prayers never failed. Daniel stood there quietly, older now, his hair touched with gray. Every brick in the building carried her story. Every room echoed her sacrifice. Daniel had used his success not to chase luxury, but to fulfill a promise made beside a hospital bed. The center provided food for hungry children, education for the poor, shelter for widows, prayer for the broken. Daniel never put his name on it. When people asked why, he answered softly, this was built by a mother, not a son. One evening, Daniel entered the chapel inside the center. A young mother knelt there, holding her sick child, tears falling onto the floor. Daniel paused, his heart tightening. He recognized that posture, that fear, that faith. Maryam. Not her body but her spirit. The woman looked up and asked, Sir, do you believe Jesus listens to mothers? Daniel smiled gently. tears filling his eyes. "Yes," he said. "He listens more closely than you could ever imagine." He placed a small cross into her hand, the same one his mother once held. Years later, Daniel lay in his bed, weak but peaceful. His room was quiet. His life was complete. He whispered a final prayer. "Jesus, thank you for my mother. Thank you for loving me through her." In his fading breath, he smiled. He dreamed of a small house, a woman kneeling in prayer, and a voice calling his name in the place where pain does not exist. A mother opened her arms. "My son," she said. Daniel ran to her not as a child of regret, but as a man of faith. Behind her stood Jesus, silent, gentle, eternal. If you are listening to this story, if your mother is alive, hold her hands. If she has passed on her prayers, if you are lost, return to faith, because a mother's love never dies, and the grace of Jesus never fails.